Namaste and welcome back to Waking Up with Mindful Serenity with Nancy. It's a beautiful day out there, a little chilly, but we certainly haven't had much of a winter in my part of the world. It's been very mild and a sign, I guess, of global warming. Anyway, I digress from that. I am going to begin answering a question from the jar, a bit of a soulful question or a deeper consciousness question. Not that I am an expert in any way, nor do I profess to be. I hope I'm not appearing that I profess to be. I am just someone who loves to learn and who is doing this exercise in order to assimilate my learning into part of who I am and what I do on a day-to-day basis. I'll ask you to forgive my eyes been bothering me a little bit, so it doesn't look real pretty, kind of wonky. You've been having problems off and on with that eye for years. But anyway, regardless, I digress, and we are going to answer a question from the jar. I will pull a question out and see if I can answer it. Wow, that's a lot of writing when my eye is hard. It's hard to see out of this eye. How do I handle my anxiety? No, I read that one already, didn't I? It is getting out of control. Yes, I know I read that question before. Excuse me. I read that one before. I think they're getting booked back in here for some reason. Okay. I can't even make this out. Get to the point that I have... I'm sorry, I can't. That's just the eyes, I think, more than anything. But let's see what this one says. I'm sorry. I really apologize for this. I'm having a hard time. I gotta get one where the words can be read easily. Okay. Did I read it? Okay, I don't know if I've done this one or not, but I'll do it again. I can't see because I was gonna do it because the writing is big and I can actually read it. Why do you call yourself a yogi? Why do you call yourself a yogi? And as soon as I turn away from my timer, it disappears. So I am going to take a deep breath first of all and exhale, and then I'm going to start the timer. Why do you call yourself a yogi? Wow. A yogi is simply someone who practices yoga, and practicing and studying yoga not just as an exercise routine, as many Westerners seem to think of yoga these days. It's been a trend in exercise for the last 20 years, trend being that it's believed to be something that will just come and go. And the yoga we Westerners tend to talk about is the hatha component, the component that we do when we go to a yoga studio or go down on the mat and do our asanas or postures. And we tend to think that is what yoga is, and a yogi is anyone who practices those exercises. To me, yoga is much more than that. Yoga is the study of the philosophy of yoga. And it was Patanjali, I think, that termed the particular yoga that I practice and study as Raja Yoga, or, the science of yoga, because I like to do everything I do. I like to have some type of scientific validation to it or a scientific explanation for it. And this Raja Yoga is the science of the mind, of understanding the mind. And when I say the mind, I'm not referring to the brain, the human, the organism that's in the center of our skull. I'm talking about the mind, the consciousness, the awareness that exists beyond everything we do and say. Yogi is someone then who studies consciousness and studies how this consciousness affects our everyday life. And it also studies, a yogi is someone who studies the distinction between the personal mind and the higher or deeper mind. So many people refer to it as the intellectual mind. I try to stay away from intellect when I'm explaining higher consciousness, because to me the intellect is based a lot of times on concepts and ideas. And the higher consciousness goes beyond what we think and feel as human beings. So it goes a little bit deeper. So a yogi then is someone who is studying awareness. Now the practice of yoga involves more than the asanas. So the asanas are one of Patanjali's limbs. He had 8 limbs. He had yama and niyama, which were basic moral conduct or ways we can live on a day-to-day basis that will help us to reduce the amount of karma we accumulate and whatnot. And then there was the third component, which is the yoga we know today in Western society as the asanas and the poses we do in a yoga studio. With that, we may also experience to some degree pranayama, the study and the practice of breath. Not so much breath control, but breath awareness, using breath as single focus concentration so that we can get away from our busy minds. Breath in the terms of the energy of prana, which is the basic life force that runs through all of us, and getting in contact with that. So pranayama, the 4th limb of Patanjali's yoga, is all about breath. And the next 4 layers have to do with the higher consciousness. Pratyahara, Dhyana, and Dhyana. My pronunciation of the Sanskrit terms are off, I'm afraid. But those 3 segments we're talking about, first of all, trying to get rid of our senses, not rid of them, sorry about that terminology, but trying to get beyond the senses we're taking in through our 5 senses, all the input that we're taking in on a day-to-day basis, and through our 5 senses, and so many times we're so attached to that, but we're trying to get beyond it to some point, to some degree. Get beyond the senses, not being so attached to it, so that we can sit there without being, our mind chasing every sense object that comes into our awareness. And the next 2 layers are about concentration and meditation. And finally, samadhi is something few yogis will ever receive. It is that uniting with the one universal consciousness. Now that's la-di-da-di-da-di, right? So why do I call myself a yogi? I practice those limbs of yoga, but in secular terms, I would say what I do is I examine the mind. I examine my thoughts and feelings. I examine my reactions to life. I watch other people reacting and behaving a certain way, and I wonder what's going on in their minds, but mostly I try to bring it into my mind, even though we all share one universal consciousness, and that is something a yogi truly believes. We all have different aspects, different things that are leading us to concentrate on certain things rather than other things. So I try to examine my mind, my thoughts and feelings. Why am I reacting the way I do? I'm watching the stimuli, and like I said, I'm working the pause, and that's the biggest thing that makes me a yogi. And that's a psychological term, working the pause. I think it was developed by Viktor Frankl. But to me, it means falling back into that space between what is happening out here in the real world and what I tend to do about it. So in that space, there is spaciousness, there is shriyante, the Buddhists would call it. There is this emptiness that can be explored and utilized to help change this reaction over here, which may be unwholesome and unhealthy, leading to negative karmic effects, into something that's wholesome, not only for me, but for other people. So what is in the way of me going from here to a response? And that's what happens when we respond in a wholesome way. I think of it as response. When we react in an unwholesome way, when we hurt ourselves or other people, or continue the suffering cycle with our behaviors, our actions, be they mental, emotional, thought-wise, or energetic, that's my reactivity, that's my reaction. So we're trying to get from what's happening out here to positive, wholesome response. But what's in the way, and it's not really in the way, it can be considered in the way if it is clouded like a beautiful blue sky. So what's inside us in the moment between the reaction, between the stimuli and the reaction, is this beautiful, spacious sky, and that is who we are. We are awareness. We are this one consciousness. We are this being that was descended down into the human. So we tend to say sometimes that we're only human, but really we are the beings in the human form, and it's the being that is in the spaciousness. So when we work the pause and when we consider ourselves yogis, we're trying to explore that spaciousness and operate from there. In order to do that, a lot of times we have to see beyond the cloud cover, understand the cloud cover of samskaras, as they're called in yoga terms, those things that we've stuffed over the years, our experiences that we stuffed and stored because they were either too painful or because we wanted to be able to repeat them again, because basically we're not okay inside and we're looking to the outside world either by grabbing things from it or pushing things away from it in order to feel okay in here. So we've stuffed and stored all these samskaras. So a true yogi is aware of these samskaras. A true yogi is aware of how this cloud cover, the samskara layer, is in the way of something maybe that's not completely understood, but you have a sense that it's there. The higher awareness, the Shakti flow, the Satchidananda, which is eternal consciousness bliss, the conditions for happiness, as Thich Nhat Hanh would already say, that are always there within us because they're not outside, they're inside. So a yogi realizes that there's something underneath the samskara layer and realizes that the samskaras have got to go. All the stored, stuffed, emotionally charged impressions that we've left inside, or like knots inside us, have to be untangled and released. Because our consciousness has a tendency, because of habit, to look down and get lost in these tangles and knots. So most of us are getting lost in our tangles and knots, our own little me experiences, our dramas, our problems and whatnot, and can only see that even though our senses and our consciousness are aware of everything that's going on. We tend to focus down on these tiny little problematic me's with all their dramas at the exclusion of everything else. And so we're pulled down into this samskara formation, pulled away into what the external world is giving us, which usually triggers what's in here. So this is coming up while this is coming at us, so we're forced to deal with what's coming from the outside and what's coming up here at the same time. And when we're non-yogis, when we're not practicing, when we're not aware how that is a very unhealthy way of behaving, and it's not something we have to do, it's just habit, psyches, habit formations. When we push it back down, right, we stuff it back down, we put all our energy keeping all this stuff down and all this unpleasant stuff away that's going to trigger this, and that takes all our energy. We are non-yogis when we do that, and not only are we non-yogis, we're not happy, we're not living fulfilling lives, we are missing out. So when we realize this doesn't work, this just keeps our suffering going, and we make a commitment, say, okay, I know there's a lot of stuff in here hiding who I truly am, hiding that beautiful Satchidananda that's in there, preventing it from, me experiencing it. Then we decide, I want all of it out. I want to release all of this stuff. We devote our lives to cleaning out our insides, knowing that despite what's going on in the world, we can't truly help out there until we are clean and pure in here. And that cleaning and purification process in here will help make us better human beings in the long run, so we can do more good in the external world while we're here. We're always consciously aware that we are not just the human, only human. That's why I can excuse my, justification of all my problems. Oh, I feel this way because you don't understand this happened, We get rid of all that nonsense. And we simply say, I want to be free of all this in here so I can feel the flow of Satchidananda, the Shakti flow, as it's called in yoga, the beautiful flow of energy in life. And when I recognize that flow, with every little bit of releasing, every time I allow something to come up, allow life to be exactly what it is, not judge it, not determine that it's wrong, bad, shouldn't be. See it as possibly helping me to bring this stuff up that I've stuffed and stored from my past, so that I can sit with it, allow it, explore it, understand it, appreciate it and then let it go, whether it be, fear or panic or, disgust or jealousy or anger, and all the emotions we judge as bad, wrong, and shouldn't be, which are just purely what they are, as Shakespeare said in Hamlet. Nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. So it's our thinking that has judged all these things and led to this preferencing and this stuffing and storing and what we now call our samskaras. So when we're not judging this and we're allowing this to be exactly as it is, and we're allowing this stuff to come up so that we can sit with it and explore it and be with it, no matter how hard and painful it is, that willingness to do that, we know, will set us free. And the more we do that, the more we release, more of it goes, the more we're getting a sense of that Shakti flow and that Satchidananda and that joy and those conditions of happiness that are already there inside us. And the less dependent we are on the outside world being a certain way. And again, the more we explore this, the more we realize just how beautiful the outside world is and how much there is to explore and enjoy and appreciate. We put away our good, bad judgments and we see the world as this amazing exploratory playground for the soul to grow in. And the more we do this, the more we recognize that soul within ourselves. And I use the term soul because it's a Western understanding of this Satchidananda, or this Atman, or some people would say Purusa, this internal being that we are, the being in the human being. And from there, we can just witness the human doing the human things, things affecting the human, the weather, the circumstances, other people affecting this human form that I am, and I'm witnessing it. I'm not all tangled up in it. My wonderful consciousness, which is way up here, is not pulled down and narrowed into my samskaras, into these reaction tendencies that I have because of the blocked and stored stuff I have. I am, basking in the joy of simply being alive when I'm able to do that. And that's what a yogi seeks to do, and that's what a yogi practices. They do practice the asanas on the mat and the pranayama, sure, and they practice meditation, but the true thing a yogi practices is releasing these samskaras, releasing the stored stuff, so the natural flow of life can pour through me, unimpeded by all my garbage that I, the human part of me, little me, put in there. And I can experience the being through it all, through the eyes of the being. And it just becomes an amazing playground, amazing place to be. And life becomes this miraculous experience that you can't help but enjoy, because we learn that the joy that we want to feel from life is not dependent on anything out there. It's who we really are. So when you ask me why I call myself a yogi, I have devoted myself to that practice. I'm one of those weird individuals who truly likes to understand how my mind works, and I'm constantly questioning and studying anything I can related to this concepts of consciousness. And I'm embracing all of it, and I am getting to the point where as much and as I've got so much stored stuff, and I'm realizing there's so much stored stuff in here, and I realize how much it's damaged my perception of the world and how it interfered with my ability to live fully. So now it's like, okay, I want it out of there. I want it out. I just want it out. And my practice begins with understanding what's in here, understanding how I react and respond, and understanding that I can get it out. And I'm willing to sit with the pain and sit with, because what's stored in pain comes up in pain, sit with it and explore it. And I'm welcoming it, and I'm not enjoying it 100%, don't get me wrong, but I know that there's something deeper in me underneath all this that's really going to shine once I get this top layer of samskaras out of the way. So that, my dear friends, is why I call myself a yogi. Thank you so much for joining me. And look, I went over time again. I've got to work on that. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Namaste.